Have you ever wondered, dear folkies, when the plandemic will ever end? Or, well, things may come back to a so-called normal? Well, then, probably and hopefully you're at the right place, because I've also been asking myself that, but not only asking, also, well, diving deeper into the aspects of it, and, well, using my introspective nature to find a certain answer. One can say I found one, but it's basically one that will piss people off because most likely many know it already, but they would rather sit idle. Welcome to my YouTube channel, a place where I discuss different topics about spirituality and introspection, and well, game analysis from time to time. This video will be a bit about plandemic, or well, based on the viral video that once appeared long ago. Of course, society dealt with it in its traditional way, that of calling people conspirational theorists. And again, this quote, let's say, is getting older and older, and well, still people cling to it. It is said to have been designed to, portray people who want to say something that the system does disapprove of, and of course use this as a means to ensure that other people disagree with it. Because this is ultimately the point of how black magic works, or black magic is also called manipulation. It's basically the same thing. You cannot control someone against their own will, but you can actually bend their will to your service. That's how society works. Now, for a year already, people have been submissive enough, and many people are still clinging to society and authorities, claiming that it is their right that someone else does something in order to have things return to the new normal. But with unprecedented scale of events, there will be no return to what the world originally was, and if you're not ignorant, well, you've already asked yourself, why would things go back to normal? Society was way too ignorant back then, no one would give a damn about anything, and literally everything would just go to waste. Resources from the planet, and so on and so forth. Illegal poaching, no one cares about it. Water's getting littered with plastic, no one gives a damn about it. You know, animal consumption is one of the most polluting, if not the number one, uh, freshwater user, right? Because in order to process animals and to raise animals, you need the greatest amounts of water possible if you take all the industries one by one. So the point about this is, well, if you still believe that society is gonna move their little, let's say, simple finger or whatever you wanna call it, right, to save you, you're forgetting that the only savior lies within you. Because ultimately, society has been like a big bright star, and there has been a moment in which it has collapsed. All lies have an expiry date, and well, apparently, this society has been a huge lie for way too long time. And well, for thousands of years, it's successfully been a lie. But you see, when a star collapses, a supernovae, okay, its core collapses only, right? And when the core collapses, it may actually be crunched into a black hole. Now, the black hole takes a while to develop, and when it does, there is a certain explosion that takes place, which propels the further layers, or some of them, right, of the star, there into the depths of space where the gases will simply be refined, right? They might actually, well, if they are in a nebula, they might actually use the universe's magic and reunite themselves in, another star. Because in space, an explosion goes unhindered, and those gases will be propelled, well, onto untold distances. There is then a magic that has two random atoms, well, sufficiently drawn together and they start spinning around and they create a gravitational pull that, well, it's exactly like a dance, irrespective of how, solitary the other atoms want to be, they will be pulled in sooner or later in this impulsive dance, which will draw in more and more matter, creating the foundation, right, the building block of new stars. And also, the gas that's been pulled into the black hole will also be pulled out, because the purpose of a black hole is to simply erase memory. Now, the way those atoms are, to be brought down after the collapse of the, core of the star, right? Those survivors, let's say, are simply the people that we see nowadays, right? They are just exactly like that. There are different movements that will draw people together more and more because ultimately that's what we all need. In a collapsing society, and well, technically there is no more society as of, we can say, early 90s or probably even before, but in the 90s, when socialism fell, also democracy fell because, democracy was only like a host for corporatocracy to simply develop. Just like those little, um, what were they called? Alien larvae that they would use, the face huggers, right, in the movie Alien versus Predator. And, corporations have fostered democracy and they have grown off of that thanks to people's ignorance. People haven't given a damn about how much power they give, and well, nowadays they can see the full extent of what naturally happens. When a society fails, just like a black hole does, it seeks to get as much of what it was with it, right? So, well, the black hole may not consciously seek to gather as much to purify, right? But society, right, and we as humans, we have at least a bit of awareness, and of course we have a bit of discerning mind. Well, we will use this discernment only based on our premises and our ways of viewing the life, right? So when society fails and, you know, rich people see that one day people will rise and say, hey, you know what? We don't want to live in this society you've been portraying for us. We don't want to hear anything about your money. They will still be stuck in believing that money will save literally everything. So they will probably go to any extent to create any sort of repression and all sorts of things because, well, they have the mass media, they have the news, so technically they have all the means to simply manipulate people. But manipulation won't go unless people are divided, because when division occurs, ignorance appears. However, there is a great punishment. When you are ignorant, you are going to suffer because you are a social being. Ignorance means, well, separation, because when you're ignorant, you separate yourself from your own pains, therefore also from the pains of the others. When this occurs, well, you're bound to suffer because, well, just because you're running away from your pains, it doesn't mean they don't exist. But the worst thing is, you're also insensitive to the pains of the others. It doesn't mean that those also don't exist. So people, in order to compensate for a lack of, social interaction, they will call to literally every little distraction that they can. That includes, dating or spending time with highly toxic people, right? Or in overindulging, better said, in things that, don't necessarily represent them. So a hobby, for example. A hobby can be done consciously or it can be done impulsively. Now, the point about the pandemic is, people have been ignorant for way too long. The virus, as I call it, may have been, these specific branches that are affecting the world nowadays may have been mingled with by humanity, or they may have developed naturally. This isn't necessarily important. Still, we are in the age of Aquarius, where the truth shall reign supreme, so any such truth will be unveiled sooner or later. However, the important part is humanity was approaching a mass extinction, and well, honestly, now with the collapse of society, that's kind of what's being intended, right? Like, billionaires are interested in buying lands, agricultural land to do their own agendas, right? Most likely, uh, well, create their own engineered food under the premise that they're doing it for the greater sake of the people. But science also has shown that a planet like ours can easily withhold 100 billion people, right? But you need the right amount of sustenance, right? You need the right agriculture. You need also the right amount of resource usage, right? But you can't handle that with ignorant people because ultimately ignorance has been a very good tool, right, to rule the masses, and that especially in Europe and of course also in America because America is nothing else than European karma. They might call themselves Americans, they might have their own history now, and they might have their own customs and traditions, but ultimately they still are European karma. Now, the point with the pandemic is it was a great wake-up call from the planet to remind humanity that ultimately, well, a more sensitive approach to life should be ensured, otherwise there will be consequences. So the big question, without diving into too many other details for the sake of keeping this video short, is if you ever wonder when this pandemic is gonna be over, well, that is all about you. Because, well, if you haven't been, let's say, convinced in 1 year that, well, everything that's been happening around is apparently to your own safety, but every time you hear the word safety on the television, there's always more reinforcement on rules and legislations that would simply have you die. First of all, they don't allow you to breathe. Now you are not allowed to work easily. And, well, you can't even think for yourself. So technically, they're coming and killing you. But, well, they're not killing you in one shot because, well, you're more valuable to the Matrix if you suffer. Because if you suffer, there is always something for you. If you are healthy, well, if everyone would be healthy, the worldwide pharmaceuticals wouldn't be too happy. Why? Because, well, a disease is always more profitable than, well, the situation that we are in, right? I mean, let's think about it. A disease can be far more profitable than a cure because if you cure people, well, you cure them and that's it. But if you keep them, diseased, and they will always seek different types of solace, right? They will seek medication and such, and there are so many sources telling you to take this and that and that and that, and honestly, none of those sources actually care for you. All they care is just that they, you know, grab the little money that you have after, spending your day working for them. So, if you are still not convinced that everything that happens in between comas for your own safety is technically happening for you to be in further lockdown, well, you're still under the, let's say, spell of what Shakespeare said. The world is a whole stage, right? And we are just mere actors. So many people still love clinging to this actorhood in which they present themselves or show themselves as someone. As I've said in a previous video, people always speak about the persona, not about who they really are. Because in the end, the persona is a vessel that one needs to express themselves, right? You need to create a vessel through which you concentrate creation out. Because if you say the truth, if you lie, whatever action you take, you concentrate a bit of creation through that because you put a bit of energy outside. And of course, many people prefer preserving that mask because, well, there is a fear in taking responsibility. And, well, that's basically lying because if you don't take responsibility and do what you need to do, well, technically you're a liar. So if you're still not convinced that everything that society is doing is to, well, even further uh, ruin your existence because society is toast already. Businesses have been broken, billionaires are buying everything, and people expect them to do something. Just look at the statistics. They have grown their wealth so much, and they're just interested in buying space, buying, places on the moon, buying places on Mars, right? It's the same mindset of not taking responsibility for others. Because how can you think about going to other planets? We've laid waste to this beautiful jewel of space, and we just seek other planets that we can lay waste as well. So, if we seek to lay waste to other planets as well, and if we stick to our own ignorance, most likely we won't reach other planets because there will always be karma. Try to escape from it as much as you want. Go as further as you want into occult practices, but you cannot ruin the karma that you have created because it is in way too many shapes and forms. Now the point is, if you're still seeking for an answer to when the pandemic is going to be over, well, when people unite and realize that society, well, is the one that needs the people, not people. People don't need society. Society has taken from them everything, has taken first of all their time. Because you have to sleep a third of your life to have energy for each and every day. Then you have to work a third of your life, and then you also have to take care of your physical maintenance. You have to, you know, well, we already took sleep into account, but you may also have to walk, you may have to take care of some children, you may have to take care of others, so there's barely any time left for you. So in the end, society came for your time first. Then it came for your breath. Then it comes for your money because it always will give you the least amount possible, right? With so many billions of dollars being printed ever since the 70s, right? When America pulled itself out of that limitation, right? Where you can only print money based on how much gold you have. The Americas, right? America has pulled itself out of this international rule in the 70s, and they've been printing billions of dollars daily ever since then. So with so much money, the question is, why are people still poor, right? Because most likely they are intended to be poor. Hasn't Christianity, for example, well, promoted this for 1,000 years? Or, well, almost 1,000 years. Like, live poor, give all your riches away so that you earn a place in heaven. But you don't even know if heaven exists. You've just had generations of people tell you about this mysterious place that doesn't even exist, except in cases where you need a psychiatrist to cure you from that, or, well, in case you may also need, well, let's say an exorcist, because you can't believe in something that you haven't experienced. Now, many people will believe in things, and belief means accepting things without a necessity for proof, which ultimately means denying your own discernment. That is basically ignorance, because when you accept things without proof, right, and when you accept everything without discernment, that is technically ignorance. So, you are ignorant to your own existence, you are suffering, you are embracing suffering because you think that after you die there will be a heaven. But how do you know? No one else came back from, afterlife to tell you that, hey, there is actually heaven in there and that is actually beautiful. So many people are telling things about, near death experiences, but we are always near death because death is an ongoing process. The moment we are born, one can say we are, well, slowly dying, or we are just living. It's basically the same thing because life fades slowly and surely. So we are always, you know, near death. Now, of course, when the mind is simply blocked, okay, and the logic center is down, all the thoughts that you have accumulated can go rampant in your mind, and the mind has a very great superpower. It can show you anything, but in such a powerful way that you will accept it as real. Because people who haven't heard about angels and God, they can't simply dream about that. They won't dream about God and angels the way the way Christianity portrayed it, because one may not know that. If someone doesn't know about this, right? Well, most likely um, they won't be able to create such things because the mind doesn't have the resources, right? The mind needs cognition, or technically, the first time you simply take one thing into account and you learn it, right? That is why it's called cognition. And then when you recognize something, it's not called so for nothing because it's recognize, right? It's something that you already have acquired and you recognize, right? You know that you have acquired it already, so you are much faster on that. So imagination is very powerful and it can give all sorts of feelings and emotions. And it might have someone feel that they are exalted, right? or they have really met angels and such, because there are multiple layers to the mind, thousands of such layers, each more capable of screwing you over. And of course, the more you get to know, and the more filth you put into your mind from other people, from sources, from the internet, or well, technically any source, the more of that filth you put into your mind, the more you boost these sources, okay? These, let's call them layers actually, and the more you make them capable of actually screwing you around. So, if you're still wondering when these things are gonna be over, well, haven't you figured out the answer yet? The answer always starts with you. Things will finish when you decide. When you feel that, the time is right to start stepping into your own power and to simply stop giving it to other people, right? Society, or 99% of the population, right, are led by 1%. We don't need billionaires who don't pay taxes, right, to give us what they want, right? After all, we are the ones who keep them into power, right? It's the workers who keep Microsoft active. It's the people who buy Microsoft products that keep it active. And worse than that, it's also the ignorance of people who keep all these mammoths alive. Because without those people who are still clinging to the old style of the Matrix, without those, there will simply be no Matrix. Because the Matrix is finished, it's gone, it's not going to come back. Whoever seeks to, you know, still party in the burning house, well, maybe they shouldn't be living anymore in the first time, because, well, if you can't see the house is burning and you still want to go back in, well, that is your own choice, but don't pull others with you. There are already so many people who are doing that. You don't have to be yet another horrible person. All this being said, you are appreciated. Take care. Ferengian Board signing out.